good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. I stand here in support of and in unity with my executive team, the presidents of the 3 unions representing uniformed members of service, and a delegation of both corrections officers and non-uniformed staff. I believe everyone at DOC, the members of the board, and other justice stakeholders, regardless of our titles, affiliations, authority, should be working towards achieving a shared goal of creating and maintaining safe jails. But how that goal is attained seems very much at odds. What I have seen recently is a widespread practice of confirmation bias, where people are so confident that their own beliefs are correct, they seek out only that information which confirms that they are right. While this type of bias may be a natural human condition, it is harmful to the process of collaboration when people who are charged with being impartial and unbiased bring their own personal agenda to the table. The biggest misconception we all may have is that our opinions are the result of years of rational, objective analysis. But the truth is, our opinions are the result of years of paying attention to information which confirms what we believe, while ignoring information that challenges our preconceived notions. In science, you move closer to the truth by seeking evidence to the contrary. And perhaps that same method should inform our collective opinions as well, because if our only objective is to get our own way, to win or to be on the right side, and not find common ground, then we are not collaborating and will continue down a path of discord and resistance. I would like to take a moment to commend Commissioner O'Neill and the men and women of the NYPD who have done an excellent job at reducing crime. Commissioners who came before him used the broken windows theory and established policies, procedures, and police response to events occurring in neighborhoods. After many years of practice and analysis of the results across the country, we learned that policing solely in response to that theory did not work. Commissioner O'Neill adjusted the response based on input from others and years of data and implemented the precision policing model, mapping out and targeting those areas within neighborhoods experiencing the highest crime statistics. The new Build-A-Block initiative is enhanced community policing built on the foundation that police officers who are permanently assigned to a particular area become a familiar fixture of that community, build trust, engage with residents, share information, and work collaboratively to solve problems, thereby reducing crime and improving the neighborhood through partnerships. When those preventative measures are unsuccessful, police officers stop the continuation of violence and or criminal behavior through arrest and removal from the neighborhood. Those deemed by a court unable to remain in society go somewhere. That somewhere is a DOC jail. And unfortunately, not everyone chooses to alter their criminal or violent behavior once incarcerated. The jails are DOC's neighborhoods. ESH and other restricted housing such as True, Second Chance, and Secure is our model of precision policing, created in response to the specific need to identify those who commit crimes or engage in violent acts within our jails, and we remove them from the neighborhood, or in corrections terms, general population. This is not done as punishment. It is our duty to keep staff, visitors, and everyone in our custody safe. We not only need to stop the dangerous behavior, we want to have an impact on reducing and eliminating further criminal acts through long-term behavior change. We worked diligently to steady both the tours and assignments of our officers and provided specialized training for those who work within these high-crime neighborhoods. Developing trust with those in ESH or other restrictive housing units allow us to understand the root cause of behavior, engage with them in a meaningful way so they can avail themselves of programs that target or disrupt criminal thinking, and then acquire skills necessary to ensure a permanent reduction in criminal activity both inside the jail and back into the community. Corrections and police both work with the same people, and we have the same goals. We take a different approach and use different tools because of our distinct mission, but the desired outcomes are the same: a safe city and safe jails. Why is it that the police are praised for the same approach to reducing crime and increasing safety, but corrections is vilified? We will be addressing young adult ESH today, and it was recently suggested that ESH was just created, the implication being that there was no basis for the design or process. To some extent, that is true. ESH was created, but in direct response to the elimination of punitive segregation for the serious mentally ill, medically ineligible, adolescents, and the 18 to 21-year-old inmates, as well as the significant reduction and time-limited use of punitive segregation for the rest of the population. Because no other correctional agency had, or to this date has, taken the steps we have in regard to punitive segregation reform, there were no suitable models or alternatives to replicate or adopt. Relying on the collective expertise of DOC staff, the What Works research, and discussions with corrections operations professionals around the country, ESH was developed and implemented as a tool to safely manage violent behavior. While we are hopeful this restrictive housing model of engagement will work, we are still in the analysis phase. We do not have enough data yet to prove or disprove its effectiveness. Yet rather than allow us sufficient time to work with the individuals placed in these units, it appears the board's intent is to continue to modify and then codify what you believe is the best way to deal with this small but violent group of individuals. When you weaken or remove our ability to appropriately house people and control violent behavior without the operational data to support your decisions, you put everyone who walks through our doors at risk. A recent Bureau of Labor statistics showed that among occupational groups, only police experience more violent incidents at work than corrections officers. For every 10,000 correction officers across the country, there were 254 workplace assaults and violent injuries. That is 36 times higher than the rate for all American workers. How many of you in this room today would continue to go to your place of employment every day if those numbers were associated with your profession? Over 11,000 staff members, as well as medical staff, volunteers, and contractors, do every single day into our jails. And I've heard people say, well, that's what you sign up for. I guarantee you it is not. We understand the risk is ever present, but we do not sign up for urine being thrown at us, feces being thrown at us, broken noses, human bites, gang assaults, or fractured spines. And so as we enter into rulemaking, I implore each of you to be mindful that confirmation bias exists. Seek to understand issues from all perspectives and explore the potential unintended consequences of your decisions. Understand that although the majority of our population has not been convicted of the crime they are charged with, jail is not a voluntary placement. There are rules in place for a reason, and they must be enforced in order for us to maintain safety and security for everyone. We now need a set of integrated intervention strategies that respond to negative behavior, designed to operate in conjunction with each other to increase accountability, ensure safety, and reduce recidivism by preventing future criminal behavior. A system of graduated responses provide a way to address both positive and negative behavior. And while we have a plethora of individual and group incentives available to grant people as a reward for sustained compliance of good behavior, currently our ability to impose meaningful consequences for infractions are severely limited. I ask that you work with us to design a system of meaningful and effective responses to inappropriate, dangerous, and/or violent behavior that occur within our facilities. Thank you.
The first speaker is Elias Husamadin.
Good morning. Usually I just speak from the cuff, but I decided to write a few things down. Sitting here, I'm really conflicted and twisted, and a lot of things going on in my head as I'm sitting here. I'm still a little disillusioned by the board just in sitting here and seeing the issues that are of importance to you, and when I say of importance, it's the issues that you spend 4, 5, 6 minutes asking questions about. PREA, how long someone is in punitive seg, but not a lot of time, not a lot of questions about what should be done with the inmates who are violent. I'm here this morning. Sunday I visited Correctional Officer John Sufant, who was attacked by 4 18-year-olds. He's still in the hospital, still recovering. I listened to the Bronx District Attorney's testimony, and I listened to Commissioner Brand's testimony, and I actually compliment her for taking a stand and taking a position. I think that in everything that's going on in this city, there's a word that I keep hearing and I keep hearing and I keep hearing: stakeholder, 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 meeting, meeting, meeting. Meanwhile, the real stakeholders are getting piss and urine thrown on them. Meanwhile, the real stakeholders just got a broken nose the other day. The real stakeholder is laying in the hospital recovering. And what I keep hearing is that the stakeholders have to have a meeting to discuss everything. What I would like to hear from this board is a question that we've been asking for years. What do we do with the violent inmates? You tell us what we can't do. You tell us about their brain development. You tell us about what's inhumane. And I want to hear, like today, not in a letter, not in a secret meeting, I would like to know from you, what do we do with these violent inmates? You won't give us that answer. And while you collect your data, collect your data, collect your data, we're being assaulted. We're having urine and feces thrown on us. We're having our nose broken. And you're collecting data and collecting data and collecting data. What we really need from this board is what we've been hearing lately from Brooklyn Borough President, the majority leader of the state Senate up in Albany, certain city council members. We've been hearing from them that something needs to be done, that maybe punitive segregation needs to be brought back for this population, but we're not hearing that from you. We're not getting that from you, and you're the ones making the rules. I'll say this, I know my 3 minutes is over. It appears that you guys are the only one that don't seem to know what it is that needs to be done with violent inmates. And as you continue to do your rulemaking and continue to collect data, you're not going to get a lot of data from the outside jurisdictions concerning urine and feces being splashed and thrown on officers, because they do not tolerate that. They address those issues immediately. We can't address issues because every month we have to come here and have you do a study or collect data to tell us what to do to protect ourselves. And as the president of this union, a lot of people say they meet with the union, they talk to the union. This union has one major concern, and that major concern is the safety of not only our correctional officers, but the inmates and the civilians. But we have a major concern in this for the protection of correctional officers. And that is what we need to get from you guys on this board, ladies and gentlemen on this board. We need you to step up to the plate and take a position. This is not something that you keep studying and studying and studying and collecting all this data and calling yourself a stakeholder when you're not putting on a uniform and walking behind these gates and not the ones that's responsible for protection and for care, custody, and control inside these jails. We shouldn't have a backlog on punitive segregation. We have more than enough cells. But the agency have to continue to deal with you guys and your rules and your rules and your rules. It's time for you guys to really lead or really get out of the way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm Patrick Ferriolo. I'm the president of the Correction Captains Association. I've been with the Department of Corrections for 36 years, and I feel I'm an expert when it comes to how we should be handling inmates. I haven't been to a meeting of this nature in quite a while, and sitting here reminds me of why I don't come to these meetings. Quite frankly, I find this board pathetic. I won't point to any individuals, but when we start a meeting with rules and how we're going to respect one another, and just a couple of meetings ago, my friend and former and president of the COBA was disrespected by this board and yet has not been publicly apologized to. I find it pretty pathetic that you set out rules on how we should talk to one another. Quite frankly, I'm going to bounce around a little bit, but I also find pathetic when people on this board sit up there and say that if an inmate splashes an inmate, it shouldn't happen again. Well, if you're that stupid to think that an inmate in our custody doesn't have the capability of splashing somebody 10 times, then you just don't know the system. There's no way in the world that you could stop an inmate from splashing somebody 20 times if they want to do that, unless you're willing to give them a muzzle, not a cup, no liquid, no cell, okay, and lock them in for 24 hours a day. If they're out and if they're violent, they're going to splash officers and captains and so on and so forth. So for anybody to say it shouldn't happen again, that's ridiculous, okay? It really is, because it's going to happen time and time again. And the reason it's going to happen is because you have helped in allowing the inmates to realize they're in an environment where they could get away with whatever they want to get away with. There's no restrictions. There's no sanctions. Punitive segregation does not exist for young adolescents when it should. For this young lady to come up here and talk about EHS as far as inmates being locked to a desk, okay? They shouldn't be locked to the desk. They should be locked in punitive segregation where they belong, okay? Because they have proven that they are violent. Now, let me tell you something. In my career, in 25 years on Rikers Island, I had treated inmates very well when they deserved to be treated well. And when they deserved to go to punitive segregation, I was the security captain in CPSU OBCC, okay? When they deserved to be there, that's where they should have been, okay? But that's just a small population of inmates. There are different types of inmates. There are inmates that come to the facility to just do their time, and we get that, and we take care of them. The men and women behind me that are correction officers, they treat them with respect and dignity each and every day. And then there are your mental observation inmates, right? Well, let me tell you something about mental observation inmates. A large percentage of those inmates are not mental observation inmates. They're manipulators, okay? And I find it ironic that this board doesn't realize that. I find it ironic that you could take an inmate, whether he's 20 years old or 40 years old, okay, and he comes into the system for the first or 20th time and has never had any mental issues or any record of any mental issues in the street, nothing to document, and then he goes and manipulates some psychiatrist and gets this M on him, so he's restricted to be punished or go into punitive segregation. Listen, blame Mayor de Blasio and blame current mayors for that, for closing down these mental institutions that we all know are closed because of money, okay? And now we're stuck with the real mental observation inmates. But when are we going to really make a real assessment of who the true mentally disturbed men and women are, opposed to the manipulators? And trust me when I tell you, I don't know what the percentage of M's we have in our custody, but I could guarantee you it's over 50% that shouldn't have that M on them. okay? So you talk about, and listen, everybody has a right to say what they want, and you talk about transgenders and everything else. That's all well and good. That's all well and good. Listen, I come from an era where we had homosexual housing, and we had all different types of housing, PC, administrative segregation. Most of those don't exist anymore. But let's not forget one thing, okay? Even transgender inmates can be violent, okay? Even transgender inmates can be dangerous, okay? So for us to put this label to say we're taking them away from the population, okay? I really don't have a problem with it, but don't lose sight that they're inmates and they're there for a reason, okay? Let's not lose sight of that. I don't know if I'll ever come to another one of these meetings again, because quite frankly, I think none of you really care. I don't really think any of you really care about what I have to say. You're just there, and you're going to listen to what I have to say because I can, okay? But I'll tell you something right now. There's only one reason I don't retire from this agency. It's because the men and women that stand behind me need us, need men like me to protect them, to protect their rights. When are we going to really put the correction officer first? When are we going to give them the benefit of the doubt? When are we, I think back of someone that was a president of the PBA 35 years ago, a man named Phil Caruso, who talked about, when are my men and women going to get the benefit of the doubt? Because I'll tell you something right now. The correction officers do not get the benefit of the doubt. They do not, okay? They are Monday morning quarterbacked every day. They're walking into an environment that most of you would never walk into. And I have something else to say, okay? If you have a liberal attitude, and if you are a liberal, there's no room in the Department of Corrections for that attitude, okay? Because a liberal is only a liberal until it happens to them. And then when they get smacked, then they want sanctions imposed, okay? Listen. You got to wake up, because I'm going to end with this, and you remember what I'm telling you. I've been a member of Correction Peace Officer Foundation for about 25 years now. Correction Peace Officer Foundation is an organization out of California that each and every year memorializes slain and officers and civilian staff that are either killed or catastrophic injuries throughout the line of duty throughout this great country of ours. And an average of 15 to 20 correction officers annually are killed in the United States of America. And when they're killed, they're not shot. They're not killed by a nice, easy death. Because there's an easy death and there's a bad death. These are violent murders, killed with hammers, stabbed to death, beaten to death. When are we going to wake up? I'm warning you. When an officer dies on Rikers Island, and trust me, it is going to happen if you continue to restrain this commissioner from doing her job. When an officer dies, Patty Ferriolo is not going to have blood on his hands. You all are going to have blood on your hands.
Well, you met Patty. A lot of you say that I seem like I'm always angry. The reality is that I am. Because I am tired of our voices not being heard by you guys. When I went to see Officer Safran on Sunday, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. We need to really cut through the chase. If we're stakeholders, then making us have to stand up here and be subjected to what public comments are is not fair. If you're saying that the commission is a stakeholder and the Bronx District Attorney is a stakeholder and the health and hospitals are a stakeholder, then what the hell are we? Because I represent 11,000 New York City correction officers. So who's the real stakeholder? But you want to subject me and Zoob and Patty to 3 minutes. There's so much conflict that comes from this board up here. The things that you guys are involved in outside of this agency. Like Zoop said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. All I want is for my members to be treated fairly, and I don't think that we should have to beg you or any freaking body to protect us if that is what your job is and that is what you say your job is. Police officers, firefighters, teachers, no one have to beg to be protected in their profession, but we have to come here and subject ourselves to you guys. We have to come here and be subjected to the drama and the theatrics of people who come here and testify and lie about what's going on Rikers Island. We have to come here and be subjected to people who did time 20, 30 years ago, knowing fully well that jail today is not what jail was 20 or 30 years ago. I'm asking you again, and I want to thank you, Zuby. For the last 2 years that I've been president of this union, I've been coming here. I appointed my board member, Albert Craig, who just never stopped fighting. Some of you you should see your facial expression when he come up. He never stopped fighting. We never stopped fighting. We're never going to stop fighting. Derek, I appreciate you not even saying that the 3 minute is up. Thank you. But at the end of the day, I need you people, we need you people to stop this data stuff, to stop this meeting. You guys have been calling me for a meeting. I don't want to meet with you. I don't want to meet with you. I haven't been meeting with you for years. I've been writing you letters for years, and you haven't acted on one goddamn thing that we have talked about. So I don't want to meet with you. Like I said, let's do it in a public hearing, in a public forum. Protect correction officers. Protect correction officers. Allow this commissioner to do her job. Stop bringing corrections here and browbeating us. Stop bringing us here and acting as if we don't do one hell of a goddamn job when you know and we all know that we do. Thank you.
Good morning. Woo, it's cold in here. We got to do something about that. Listen, it blows. This is like I'm in a twilight zone. We gave you these numbers. We gave it to you, and you gave us back numbers. Like Elias said, you gave no solutions. I hear everybody reading nice letters from inmates, and it sounds. I mean, if they're struggling and having a hard way, I feel bad for them. But when are we going to hear the letters from the inmates getting slashed? I don't hear you ever talking about that. See, my brother told me something a long time ago. Everything's a hustle. Everything's a hustle, he told me. I don't know what he was going through, but he said it. So all this time I've been coming up here for 3 years or 2 years, whatever it's been, and I've been saying one thing: safety, 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 safety. Not about these services, not about anything other than just safety. You didn't care. Now it seems like you're starstruck and the DA's here, and we're going to work with the DA, and we're going to do this, but we've had these nice conversations privately, and then publicly, they don't carry over. And I started asking myself, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? These people seem like when they're alone, they're very decent people. Then I realized a lot of you not. A lot of it's about money. A lot of you people that come here and talk, you're talking about money. A lot of you getting grants, 25, 30 million, 16 million, 4 million. You're working with the board, with the department, and you're getting money. It's a hustle for you. See, so we are part of this game, and you're getting money for it, many of you. And we're going to expose you people who are getting money from this city. We're going to expose you. We're going to do everything. You sat up here, Mr. Richards, and vilified us, held up a book, and said, oh, that indicated that we were rapists. You disrespected my profession, my name, and everybody that I've worked with. And this is one of the most racist movements I've ever seen. The only reason that you're not doing something because there's predominantly black and Hispanic officers. Because if it was Caucasian officers, you would be upset. But you're not going to do that. See, the thing is, now I'm listening to her talk about restraint desk and how that hurts people. Let me tell you something. Nobody wants anybody cuffed to any desk. Nobody wants to say, but you can't even come up with your sympathy and empathy and all those other T's sound good, but they don't do a goddamn thing for somebody getting beat up and cut. So while that's something, I mean, like those numbers you spewed, those numbers that you, in response to our handing you those booklets. Number one, we handed you a booklet with solutions, NIC book. And in it, we talked about restrictions and all of that. You didn't do nothing with it. You did nothing, absolutely nothing with it. And it took this officer almost getting killed, which I told you a year ago, February, that somebody in Delaware got killed and we needed to do something about this. And for 1 year, every month after that, I've come here and spoke to you, and you've done nothing, absolutely not a goddamn thing, but sit there with these looks on your face like you're interested, and then you walk out of here and you high-five the advocates and your chest bump them, and then you walk around here and vilify it. I'm not gonna let you or any of you up here disrespect our job, our profession, our race, our culture, nothing. We hardworking. Many of us came through those same neighborhoods that these inmates came from, and we happen to be the ones who didn't go left or didn't go right. We stayed the course. And you have belittled and berated us. You, a man who talk about redemption and all this other kind of stuff, get up here and hold a book that vilified us and called us rapists and perverts and sexual predators. And this is a good read. And shame on you. You're very disrespectful, and I don't really care if you feel disrespected. I hope you feel disrespected, because every time we get assaulted and beat on, we feel the same way. When somebody gets splashed, and this young lady got up here and talked about splashing, and I mean hepatitis and HIV, and how it's high rates of it. Imagine what an officer feels who just been splashed. Look at the correlation between inmates with high rates of HIV and hepatitis and somebody getting feces and urine thrown. And I've been saying it for 2 years. And for 2 years, you've done nothing. Absolute. Take Gerald, what's his name, leave, and get out. Find another hustle, because this ain't working out well for nobody but you.
It's always hard to follow the leadership in the union because they speak the truth with regards to the issues that's not being addressed. But I have a question for you. Maybe I didn't see it somewhere. Where are the minutes for these kind of meetings so that people in the community can see and hear what's going on? Because in truance, if in fact that resolutions or information is being shared with you and nobody's acting on it, who holds you accountable? Do we have to, again, probably step up and ask the governor to do an oversight to make sure you're doing your job? Because truth be told, there are people getting hurt. Those men and women that go behind that door, that are corrections officers, that are civilians that work there, and hell, even the inmates that just want to get there to get out so that they can get to a fair trial hearing and get away from that place. But nobody's doing anything to protect or safeguard them. Same conversation. This is my second time here, but I've actually talked to folks that have been that's been coming here for years. And it seems as though, just like with politicians, the same conversation, nothing gets done. The only thing that changes is that people do come here and look at me as a black man, or those individuals that are in jail that are Hispanic, and look at them as a dollar sign. He's right, because this is about money. And let's not get this twisted by any shape, form, or the fashion. At the end of the day, you're not stakeholders. You're political appointees. Understand that. And then when you have people on your board who basically talk about upholding the rights of individuals, but then turn around and hire somebody to sexually assault somebody to work for them after he steps down from his corporation, and you stand up here and say that you're here to give a fair assessment, to stand and look at people honestly, you have to double check that. You have to double check that. Now, I don't know half of you people up here, I really don't care, but at the end of the day, what I do know, our community is not getting the information of what's going on. What we hear is what we hear from these corrections officers when they come home, that are brothers and sisters, mothers, aunts, uncles, that we have to talk to, like I have, relatives, friends that I went to school with. My fraternity brothers work in that facility, and the stories I hear coming out of that. And then you get people coming here talking about, I'm gonna save the world. You know what, I'm gonna get this grant, I'm gonna save the world because these kids are suffering from all of these different types of things. Do you know that a 16-year-old took and broke the jaw of an administrator and cracked her skull open in one of the very facilities y'all are trying to take over? But that individual should not be restrained. Come on, people, y'all, you're sending the wrong messages up here. And don't give me the screw face, because quite frankly, I know what I'm talking about. I'm outside on the street watching what's going on, while you guys get your paychecks and go hang out at Gracie Mansion with the mayor. So let's be real about this. Let's be real about this, bruh. At the end of the day, just give them what they need. Show them the respect that's due them. And allow them to be safe, just like you safe when you're hanging out with the mayor.